Hi, my name is Nur Atira binti Azri. My third number is 271962. I will explain the background of the Chicago School. The Chicago School was founded in 1979 by a group of psychologists and educators Milton Friedman and George Stigler. Arrived in 1948, built the school's unique identity. Gary Becker, Robert Lucas, and several other prominent economists at the Chicago have continued the tradition. The tenets of this school fit within the broader classical, new classical tradition. The Chicago is referred to as the New Classicism. The Chicago School includes monetarist belief about the economy, contending that the money supply should be kept in equilibrium with the demand for money. Next is historical background of Chicago School. Many of the important development in economic talks since the time of Marshall stimulated or at least rationalized greater government involvement in the economy. For example, Picou's idea of externalities, Robinson's theory of monopsony, the theories of imperfect competition and monopoly power, the economic theory of market socialism convinced many that the state could just as efficiently allocate resources and produce goods and services as could private enterprise. The Keynesian revolution basic premise that government should use fiscal, monetary, and income policies to stabilize the economy became the new conventional wisdom. However, members of the Chicago School oppose this entire line of reasoning. Chicago School tried to maintain and strengthen the classical, marginalist, and new classical tradition at a time when it has diminished popularity because of the Keynesian revolution.
My name is Muhammad Marwan bin Muhammad Fuzil and my metric number is 270451. I will present about major tenet of Chicago School. Firstly, optimizing behavior. The new classical principle state that people attempt to maximize their well-being where their every decision maximize the behavior. The basic economic unit is individual, but they could combine into a larger unit, which is family, politician, political interest group, business organization, as a way to achieve and gain from the specialization as an exchange. Next, observe price and wages in general tend to be good approximation of their long-run competitive ones. Price and wages reflect opportunity cost to society cost at the margin. On a body price persists in the long run only in instance where the government blocks competitive entry, and even in those instances competition eventually generate new product and technology that will undermine the monopolist position. Establishing clear property right and encouraging private regulation can minimize externalities. Institutional arrangements were like seniority pay, large executive salary, union contract, and others. After that, the Chicago relies heavily on mathematical theorism using both Marshallian partial equilibrium and the Walrasian general equilibrium approach. Beside that, the school also reject Keynesianism economy that conclude the economy is self-adjusting and regulating with minor fluctuation being self-limiting. Besides, changes on money stock can cause direct changes in the nominal GDP rather than operating exclusively through financial interest rates. Furthermore, fiscal policy is generally ineffective unless accompanied by changes in the money supply and rational expectation, and the theory of sellers or cost push inflation is confused because inflation is monetary fundamental. Last but not least, limited government. Government is inherently as an agent for achieving objective that can be satisfied through private exchange. Government officials have their own objective that they seek to optimize, and therefore inevitable divert a portion of the resources at their disposal to purpose other than benefit taxpayer. Besides, rather than being in the public interest, the government regulation normally benefit those who seek the regulation or those who learn to marshal it to their private advantages.
Hi, my name is Muhammad Hakim bin Muhammad Sabi. My number metric is 270242. Now I will present about which tenet of the Chicago School become the lasting contribution. So, the which tenet is the new classical idea have already penetrated deeply into the curriculum of the US universities. They discuss of the natural rate of unemployment, rational expectation, a long-run vertical Phillips curves, and short-run versus long-run aggregate supply. So, the Chicago theorem of human capital, household production, job search, and discrimination all are discussed within the textbook on contemporary level economics. The case for the flexible foreign exchange rates is standard fare in international economic textbook. The cost theorem of externalities, although still controversial, is treated in textbook on public, financial, and environmental economics.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurul Atira binti Mubakri. My extension number is 27054X. Whom did the Chicago School benefit or seek to benefit? First is society of large. Convince the general population and elected officials that the competitive market system, left relatively free of government interference, produce maximum economic freedom, which is turn yield economics individual and collective economic well-being. And second, corporate at large. Less government regulation and paperwork. And the second is corporate merge are necessary element in the market for corporate control. And the last one is advertising have produced to competitive outcome by providing information about the alternative from which consumer can choose. And the last one is a high income groups. This is mean the tax system to raise revenue, not to redistribute income.
Now I will explain about the meter fragment and one of the contribution in the new Classicism Chicago School. So I will explain about the biographical detail, the consumption function, and the monetary theory. So the biographical detail of he lived from 1912 to 2006. He had a study undergraduate at the Rutgers University and Master of Art at University of Chicago and PhD at Columbia University. And he became a full professor in 1948 at the University of Chicago for 3 years. And in 1976, he awarded the Nobel Prize for Economics. Okay, now I will move on to the consumption function. In 1957, Friedman published a theory of consumption function. He suggests that the Keynesian consumption function is too simplistic. So, according to Friedman, the household's consumption function is determined by permanent income rather than current income. So, the consumption function does not respond to every change in income caused by change in investment or government spending. It responds only to change in income that people view to be permanent and long-lasting. So, the implication is that the marginal propensity to consume MPC out of change is current income is smaller than the Keynesian theory. And now I will explain about the monetary theory. So, Mr. Friedman had discussed several things on the role of money in economic, which is a demand for money, and the quantity theory of money. So, he said that the demand for money is equal as the demand for cash balance. We explain first about the demand for money. There has three major determinants of the amount of money household and enterprise will decide to hold. The first is total wealth. The total wealth in all forms, including human capital and permanent income, and increases. So the second one is cost of holding money. The higher cost will result the less money be held. So this cost vary with interest rate, the expected rate of inflation, and the price level. The third one is preference. About the holding, the preference is about the holding and using cash are the third major determinant of money demand. Friedman arrested that this preference remain relatively constant over significant stretch of the space and time. Now I will explain about the modern quantitative theory of money. According to Friedman, the demand for money is relatively stable in the short run. An increase in the supply money will leave people holding cash balance in excess of amount they want. The modern quantity theory does not assume that the velocity is constant, but rather than the demand for money is highly stable. The inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon produced in the first instance by an unduly rapid growth in the quantity of money. So, Friedman also say about the long run Philip curve. So, Friedman said that is a similar distinction between the actual and natural rate of unemployment. The natural rate of unemployment, said Friedman, is the one of that occur when the actual rate of inflation and the expected rate of inflation are equal. Authorities can push the actual rate of unemployment temporarily below the natural rate only by generating a level of inflation that is greater than expected. But once people adjust their expectation, the new higher rate of inflation, the natural rate of unemployment will return. So you can see there's a of the long run Phillips curve. So suppose the rate of inflation at the P1 and the unemployment is the natural rate at the UN. So when the inflation is greater than the expected at the P2 is greater than P1, the unemployment temporarily falls below the natural rate, which is UN to U1. But once P2 become the new expected rate, the short-run Philip curve shift from SRPC1 to SRPC2, and the rate of unemployment return to its level. So in long run, there is no trade-off between inflation and unemployment. The long run Philip curve is vertical, indicating that any one of the several rates of inflation is compatible with the natural rate of unemployment. That's all for me. Thank you.
Robert E. Lucas Jr. was born in Yakima, Washington. He was BA and PhD degrees in University of Chicago. He was influenced by Friedman, who taught his first year macroeconomics and graduated program by Samuelson Foundation of Economic Analysis. 11-year career at Carnegie Mellon, and in 1974 he returned to Chicago Banks. In 1995, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics for his contribution in macroeconomics. Friedman's theory of the inflation and employment relationship is based on the assumption of adaptive expectation. People determine their expectation about future on the basis of past and present inflation and change their expectation only as a new event unfolds. Lucas goes beyond Friedman's analysis that economic agents form rational expectation about future outcomes of current stabilization policy. Although the idea of rational expectations was not original, it was Lucas who developed its implication for macroeconomic theory and policy. Because people understand that explanatory fiscal and monetary policies produce inflation, they immediately adjust their inflation expectation upward when government the policies. This reaction to expected inflation rendered expansionary fiscal and monetary policy ineffective. Lucas' analysis distinguished between short-run and long-run aggregate supply. In the new classical model represented by the figures, an anticipated change in aggregate demand does affect the level of real output, but only temporarily. In contrast, an anticipated change in aggregate demand has no effect on real output and employment. Suppose that economy is initially at point A and that an unexpected surge in investment spending increased aggregate demand from AD1 to AD2, an anticipated increase. The produce immediately experience rising price and conclude that these prices are rising relative to other price and to price of a level. Expecting higher profits, they increase employment and the output moving the economy from A to B. Observe that the short-run aggregate supply curve AS1 is upsloping. The unanticipated price level increased from P1 to P2, expand real output from Q1 to Q2. But in fact, all price, including the price of labor and other input, are rising due to the general increase in aggregate demand. Firms collectively experience rising costs, causing the short-run aggregate supply curve eventually to shift leftward from AS1 to AS2. The economy moved from B to C, reversing the previous increase in output. In the long run, the economy aggregate supply curve is simply a vertical line, aggregate short-long run, emanating upward from Q1 through points such as A and C. When change in aggregate demand are anticipated, real output stays constant. For example, suppose that the central bank increased the money supply in order to expand aggregate demand from AD1 to AD2 because the fixed action in publics and the inflationary output in anticipate, firms immediately recognize that the higher price being received for their products and part of the general inflation they had anticipated. They understand that the same force that are raising their price are raising their cost, leaving their profits unchanged. The short-run aggregate supply curve shifts leftward from AS1 to AS2. Simultaneously with the rightward increase in aggregate demand from AD1 to AD2. The economy moved directly from A to C.
George Stigler was born on 17 January 1911 in Washington, US. He graduated from the University of Washington in 1931. It was during his studies at Northwestern that Stigler developed an interest in economics and decided on an academic career. After he received a tuition scholarship from the University of Chicago, Stigler enrolled there to study economics and went on to earn his PhD in economics there. He taught at Iowa State College from 1936 to 1938. He spent much of World War at Columbia University performing mathematical and statistical research. Stigler also won the Nobel Prize in Economic Science in 1982 for his seminal studies of industry structure, the functioning of markets, and the cause of effect of public regulation. Another Stigler's most important contribution to economics was published in his landmark article, The Economic of Information. According to Friedman, Stigler essentially created a new area for study for economics. Stigler died on 1st December 1991 in Chicago, US. George Stigler pointed out that information is an economic code, dealing with uncertainly individual who would require additional information to guide their rational decision. More information is better than less. Consumer decide how much information to obtain by comparing marginal benefit and marginal cost. MB start high, then fell rapidly. MC start low, then increase. Optimal amount of information is where MB equal MC. For example, a consumer in the market for new car. The marginal benefit of additional information such as utility associated with locating a particular brand and style that match one's want, as well as the associated with discovering a low price, declines as more information is obtained. The marginal cost of additional information such as transportation and other such expenses, the opportunity cost of time, and the utilities sacrificed by delay the purchase generally rise as consumer obtain more of it. Consumer will continue to seek additional information. Consumer will stop looking for additional information when MB equal MC. Consumer has obtained the optimal amount of information. Josh A. Akerlof extends Stigler's analysis of information. Akerlof asks a rather simple question. Why does a new car lose so much value when the buyer drives it off the sales lot? If physical depreciation is the culprit, then why can the same new car sit for weeks or even months on the lot and not lose value? Arkelof's answer, which earned him a share of the 20,001 Nobel Prize in Economics, was that some market contain asymmetric information. That's all from me. Thank you.